Welcome back to a Casio mod part 3 final version. I'm done with modifying this watch. So here's kind of the final result. I decided to remove the lume and just put in a green negative display on it. So here's kind of what it looks like. Oh, sorry about that. Get a closer look. So in the end, you know, kind of the summary of what we did here. Initially, I applied the lume, and the lume comes off very easily. You can kind of see right here, it just peels off. So you can see what you're left with is just like, you know, a little, almost like a sticker comes right off. So initially, I applied the lume on the first part, and it did work. Everything was fine. I mean, that's kind of a free mod. It doesn't really like take anything away, but the mirror prevented enough light to go in there to charge it kind of naturally. I mean, if I shine a flashlight on it, it worked, but not always going to have a flashlight. So that's the challenges that these Casios have. This mirror, and this mirror really is what allows you to really see this in a daytime. So this is kind of passively lit. When you look at like a, you know, like an actual digital watch, like a Garmin Fenix, for example, you know, the battery is driving the display for you to see. This one is powered really by this film. So the light goes past polarizer film 1, the LCD, film 2, bounces off this, and gives you that kind of good visibility in the daytime. So when I remove this, then the lume worked like I intended. Basically, the lume would just charge naturally in a room, and then when I left the lit room to dark room, it was glowing perfectly. Everything was great. But without this, it was very dull. So in the end, I don't like that. So removed that, and I applied a negative green display to the back. So now it's kind of back, no, I'm going to say back to normal because it was positive before, but this is kind of what we're left with. And ultimately, you know, if you're looking to do this, what you need to do, there's kind of two kinds of polarizer films. You got these transparent ones, which are more intended for the top, you know, like the top film. And then you have these, as you can see, it's not transparent, and it's not transparent because there's actually under the green color, there's this film applied, which means it kind of functions the same way, is that it'll bounce light back for you so you can kind of get your display back. Now because it's coated green, you get a negative display. So that's ultimately what I ended up doing, and this is how it's going to stay. And for those that want to consider doing the lume, you know, these are the two colors I got, the green and like the aqua blue. These supposedly are the brightest of all the colors. So in the end, I think this came out pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. It has a pretty cool color. It looks kind of, you know, the kind of green kind of changes. Like in bright light, it kind of gives off a very kind of like emerald green. But under some lights like this, you can kind of get that kind of olive green as well. So it kind of depends on the light conditions. But visibility is good. I mean, it's basically on par with, like, you know, with this one, which has kind of a darker green, but, you know, it's about the same angles, same everything. So something different. But for those who are wondering kind of how to kind of do this, I can kind of better explain because it was hard to film everything. So if you're interested in kind of understanding this better, stay around. If not, this is pretty much over. But when you take the watch apart, you kind of have, you know, here kind of from top down, you got this is your top polarizer. Then you have the LCD. Then you have the bottom film. Oh, can't spell today. So that's this is kind of like a sandwich. Oh, then I guess you have the mirror, which is also applied. So this kind of makes up the screen. These are all kind of glued on together. And then below that, you have that plastic tray, and then I think this is called like the reflector. And then like a white plastic backing that goes, just kind of rests in there. Then your LED goes right here. And then the LED basically lights up this kind of plastic, which bounces off this white reflector and gives you the light. So, and this one kind of has a cool green color to it. So that's kind of how that part works. So if you want to apply lume, you apply it to the reflector. So you put it right here on the bottom side. You add the lume here, and it kind of sandwiches with this plastic backing. And I guess, again, what I was saying is that the lume needs to be charged by the light. So when light comes that way, this mirror stops majority of it from ever hitting the lume, which made it hard to charge. I mean, if you hit it with a flashlight, it would do it, but just kind of naturally walking from room to room, it wasn't really working that well. When I took this off, then it was perfect. Then all the light passed through, charged it, all the light went back, and it would glow like a dive watch when you change rooms. But because this also powers the display during the day, then obviously you can't see. So that's a trade-off. So in part 2, I removed the film, and then to make this green, I replaced basically these two, the rear film and the mirror. And this is where these come in handy because it's got that built in. So the mirror is actually already in there. So it's like a two-way mirror. So yeah, so if you want to modify, that's kind of, those are your kind of what you're working with. The top one obviously is easier because it's just a film. But that one probably the easiest to change. The rear one's a little harder because the other part is a lot of the printing is on the bottom side. So like if you noticed, there were like lines here printed on the watch. Those came off because that was I don't know if that was printed on the polarizing film or on the LCD, and the LCD ripped it off. It almost actually looks like it was printed on the polarizing film, to be honest, because it came off way too cleanly for it to be on the actual LCD. So I think it was printed on the polarizer film. So I lost those little dividers, but you know, not really noticeable. But yeah, that's kind of how the process works. It's a fairly easy mod to do. It's just tedious. Make sure you have a good workspace area because there's a lot of tiny parts. Alright, this concludes the ProTrek. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be maybe doing some more modifications here in the short future and some of the other ones. So stay tuned. Alright guys, take it easy. Bye.